what we need to agree on is there's a problem. There's a problem
Yeah.
when 22 people a day are killing themselves or more, okay? And we're not really addressing and getting after, how we're saving lives. So instead of me sitting back and saying, oh, that's a problem, what I'm saying is here's one way that we can do something about the problem. You come to one of our events, someone's going to be there that can help you.
Yeah.
If you're an active duty player, you're playing actively in the MBA, well, you're already enhancing your resiliency already. And so that's pretty important for a whole lot of people.
Hi, I'm Chris LeBrun, your host of the Wholistic Productivity Podcast. As someone who's never been afraid of dreaming big and going for it all, I often find myself with a lot on my plate. I'm a husband and father, a nonprofit fundraiser, and an entrepreneur. What I've realized is my view of productivity was pretty toxic. After decades of believing that in order to do more, you had to work harder, I began to see productivity as this beautiful thing. Holistic productivity is the idea that you can accomplish your professional, personal, and purpose-driven goals in a healthy way, and doing so will make you happier and more fulfilled. Join me each week as we break down myths about productivity, share practical tips for maximizing your time, energy, and focus, and hear from others about their productivity journey. This is the Wholistic Productivity Podcast. Welcome to the Wholistic Productivity Podcast. My name is Chris LeBrun. I'm your host. I'm a productivity coach, and I just thank you for being here tonight. You hear me talk all the time. The motto, the purpose behind this show is dream big, plan smart, and live fully. And my guest today is definitely someone who dreamed big, and I'm sure had to plan smart and is living fully from my perspective at this point. My guest today is Mike Meyers. No, not that one, which I'm sure he gets a lot. But Mike is a veteran who served in Operation Iraqi Freedom and had over 23 years of active duty in the U.S. Army. After years of being a voluntary coach for military basketball teams, Mike had a vision for a full-fledged military basketball league. And in 2017, he was co-founder of the MBA, the Military Basketball Association. Since then, Mike has worked tirelessly and crisscrossed the country to grow the league and bring more partners on board. And let me tell you, Mike's work has paid off. The men's league has about 30 teams, and the women's league has about 5 teams as well. The 2025 NBA championship game aired nationally on the CBS Sports Network in May, and I think that is a huge result of Mike's hard work. His passion and drive to bring the NBA to reality is a vivid reminder that no dream is too big if you believe in yourself and take bold actions over and over again. Mike, it is so good to see you again, man, to talk with you. I love following you on social media, but we go a lot farther back than that. We were just talking a little bit before recording. We went to college together, man. You were there in Texas with me. It's good to see you again, man. Thank you for being here.
No, thanks so much, Chris. It's great to see you. We all get a little bit older. Obviously, we've lost a little of our hair, but you still look the same. I follow a lot of the things that you've been doing, and you're just you're making an impact in everything you do and touch, and I'm glad God's blessed you.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Let's start off talking about your service. So 23 years active duty in the Army. Thank you for that, first and foremost. Appreciate the men and women like yourself that go out there and serve for our country and fight for our country. Tell me about that service and kind of what that experience was like.
Man, it was great. I mean, to be honest with you, Chris, I joined the Army right after Southwestern. I'd been going to college there. The university really kind of turned my life around. I love basketball. I wish I could have had played for SWAU, but I didn't get a chance to, and got married very early, and joined the military in 1999. Went to the basic training at Fort Sill, Oklahoma, and it was It's new. I mean, you got to talk about, a Seventh-day Adventist, a guy like me, Christian guy, going to fight the country before or to serve my country before 9/11. It was new. It was a very, very different army than what we see today. There hadn't been
Hmm.
any real conflicts, that we'd seen. And so I thought that I was joining the service to do what everybody does, pay for college and get
Yeah.
everything, out of the way with. But, I did want to serve my country. I had a higher calling. Very quickly, my life changed, so in 2000, my daughter was born and love her to death. Um, and then obviously a year later, we have September 11th.
Yeah.
And so that the world changed. I was enlisted. I wasn't an officer at the time.
Hmm.
And, it's been a journey. It's been a joy. I've had, the military obviously has its challenges,
Sure.
but it was still a vision of mine to lead, to lead men. And I
Hmm.
loved my time in the service. I'm proud of it. It came with a lot of challenges. I deployed. I went to war.
Hmm.
Saw some very, very, very difficult things that, most Americans don't get a chance to see. But I loved it. I had the support of my family. I'm
Hmm.
sure you remember my sister Susan,
Yep.
my brother Benjamin, Joseph. They were all very supportive. My mom and dad, my father's a minister. And so when I had to leave and go to war, and my former wife, Aida, we both went to war together.
Hmm.
So you're talking about a husband and wife, a team that went to war, served their country together, served in Baghdad. I'm literally just a few miles away, but
Wow.
because the threat was so great, we weren't able to see each other on a normal basis. I mean, it'd be months and weeks before we could properly
Wow.
see each other. And what's really cool is the way Aida would come see me was by helicopter, which was kind of crazy. And I would get mad because I'm like, why are you doing that? It's dangerous. Don't come see me in a helicopter. Um, and it was tough. May 2007 was really tough for me. We lost a lot of people, in my unit in particular.
Hmm.
And while all this is going on, there's like a 5 or 6 year old child back home that we left with my parents, for them to raise for a whole year.
Wow.
And so, when you serve the country, if anyone out there listening, your audience, it's not enough to just say thank you for your service.
Hmm.
We really have to look at the sacrifices that a lot of our men and women, in uniform currently, and even their veterans, that they've made. They leave their families, they leave their homes,
Yeah.
um, and it's the families that are left behind that have to pick
Yeah.
up the pieces, while those service members are away. And so, I came back, and I don't know how much time we have, but I came back very different, Chris, from war. Um, it was challenging. And everything that I've done, everything that I do with the MBA has a basis in what I faced during my deployment. And so, having a platform to speak about the issues that affect military and veterans is very important. And I'm just thankful that I'm able to tell my story.
Yeah. Yeah. I think what you said there is so important. We often thank the person who was serving, but it is the whole entire family. It's the spouse, it's the kids. In your case, it's the extended family that's pitching in to serve. And I do think that is just as much service for the country as the men and women that are boots on the ground, so to speak, because it is, it does take a village. It takes everybody coming together. And so your story definitely points that out, I think, more than many, to have both mom and dad right
Right.
overseas at the same time. That's
Oh, it was tough. It was
yeah.
tough. She was there before me.
Wow.
That's the thing that, about, my former wife, that the thing about Aida that was so special was that, she was there before I was there. I kind of packed up the home, but she left before I did and was in
Yeah.
country before I was. And she stayed longer than I stayed because I was medically
Wow.
evacuated. And so she stayed for the full 12 months during the deployment. So, and then I think about like my brother, my sister, my mom and dad. My mom and dad took care of my daughter, got her into school, hugged her and kissed her whenever she was crying at night and missing her mom and dad. Whenever she woke
Yeah.
up with the nightmares, they were there. My brother was so amazing. He took care of my house. He took care of my car. He mowed my lawn. When I got back home, I was like, hey, typical SDA. I got back from my plane. I got off the plane. He picks me up from the hospital because I was at a hospital.
Yeah.
And I said, Burger King veggie cheeseburger right now. And that's where he took me, and I literally got a Whopper with veggie Whopper. So it was amazing to have that sense of family. But my brother took me home that night, made sure because I was different. I mean, you're talking about a person who was walking around in Baghdad with a gun with weapons and just constantly alert, to now being at home with no weapon on a military base and left to kind of figure out these mental health challenges that we know a little bit more about today, but we certainly didn't know about back in 2007, 2008. So it was challenging, but it took my entire family to help me survive. And I went from a period of suffering to surviving to, what you said a few moments ago, thriving.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's amazing. I think before I even knew about the MBA, I was seeing you coaching basketball
Yeah.
for the military. Talk about that. What was, because it was a volunteer role that you did. So I'm sure those were the early stages of what ended up being the Military Basketball Association. How did that go about? Because I was thinking back in the day, dude, is that Mike's job in the Army? Does he just like coach teams? Like that's a pretty sweet gig in the Army, right? I'm
It
sure I had that
was.
like totally wrong, right?
No, it was. So here's the thing. Like I was a sustainment officer, logistics. That's what I did even when I was deployed. When I got back from Baghdad, I was different.
Yeah.
I literally suffered from post-traumatic stress injuries. I had seen things
Yeah.
that you shouldn't see. Processing that was very difficult. So when I got to Fort Riley, Kansas, I was stationed in Kansas for a while. I was approached by the garrison command, the morale, welfare, and recreation office to become a volunteer coach and stand up a team at Fort Riley, and I did. But I didn't do it the traditional way. I mean, I wanted to establish a program, and that program became like a powerhouse. I mean, they were just great. We were winning, and we were going different places. And I was coach of the team for 2 years. I wanted to be a basketball coach. So what I ended up doing was winning there, but not really winning the big tournament. No national championship yet, and no conference championship. And so I left Fort Riley, Kansas as one of the best, as a good coach in military basketball, but not well known. So I went to Korea, walked into the sports office and said, hey, look, my name is Mike Meyers. I'm a military basketball coach. I would like to be the coach here in Daegu, South Korea for Area 4. And the rest is really history. I told them exactly what I was going to do, that I was going to win every tournament in Korea. And that's exactly what happened. And so after that, and that was a great team. I'm like, I don't have anything else to win in the Pacific or in Korea. So I moved back to, all the while I'm doing this, I'm a logistics officer. I'm an operations officer. So I'm working, but basketball is kind of my hobby, the thing I do to keep my mind straight. In 2013, I was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress. They put it in my military records. And so I took myself, I stepped forward and said, hey, I need some help. The basketball was always my therapy. And so when I went to Fort Hood in Killeen, Texas, the sports office reached out to me. I didn't even have a house and I didn't have any of my household goods, but I was meeting with the sports office while I was in the hotel room about military basketball and what I was going to do. And I told them I'm going to win a national championship and I'm going to win the conference tournament. And in 2015, we ended up winning the national championship and winning the conference tournament. And
Wow.
from there, I had seen so much about what these sports programs could do to help not myself, but people that were suffering from post-traumatic stress injuries and mental health challenges to their mental health fitness, that in 2016, we won again, back to back. And then I stopped coaching and we started the seeds and the foundation for what we know now as a Military Basketball Association.
When you say that you were winning the national title and the conference championship, what was that league? If there was no Military Basketball Association, who were those championships and titles with?
That's great. So there was no entity. There was no MBA. There was just a tournament. And there were all of these different tournaments that would happen across the country. And so what I did was go to the biggest tournament that there was and win it. And we did it twice in a row. So oddly enough, in 2017, we had some differences with the current tournament, and we'd asked to make some changes, and they weren't really, amenable to some of the changes we'd like to make. And so we decided, let's just see what we can do if we run our own tournament. And what started out as something that I was doing just to kind of be competitive and rival what these guys were doing turned into a campaign and turned into a movement that became bigger than myself. I credit those guys who ran that tournament and who continue to run that tournament. It's a successful tournament. I credit them for motivating me to push this to the next level. And they were my rivals. We had a lot of differences in the philosophy in which the direction of military basketball should go. And there was some spirited debate and conversation about what military basketball should look like. And they do what they do. And then I said, I've got to do what I do. And my goal was to put the military athlete on the biggest platform that I could. And so when it comes to, basketball or college sports or anything like that, a CBS Sports Network was the highest platform that we could go. We strived for it. The organization went through several evolutions and growth and people that were with us, and then they left the organization, and then some people came back to the organization. But the constant has been, the 3 or 4 people that kept us afoot. And I credit that to them. But I don't, I've grown to the point where anyone who's doing something in sports to raise awareness should be commended. So my hat's off to the rivals of the folks that had a tournament but not a league. Like those folks were based out of San Antonio. And then I credit our fans and our coaches for elevating us to the point where we're able to reach over 3 million people in one weekend. That's it's just a testament to what God can do when you listen and He puts His will be done, and that's just how I saw it.
You talk about life through basketball. Explain what that means and why that's the driving force of the MBA.
Yeah, so life through basketball, I suffered, unimaginable anguish and stress from what I saw in Baghdad in 2007. Particularly in May 19th of 2007, our unit had a catastrophic loss. We lost 7 people in one day. One company under Mike Meyers, lost, at least 10 in 1 month. And it was a tough time for our organization. And so I brought that back home with me.
Yeah.
When that unit redeployed back, they lost their first sergeant the day that the unit returned home to suicide.
Wow.
And so when you look at life through basketball, you have to look at what our veterans and our service members are going through and how hard it is for them to talk about the challenges that they face with their mental health.
Mm.
So for me, I felt like sports was something that brings us together.
Yeah.
In the military, you're part of a team, you're part of a unit, and they are your family. And so the concept and the idea behind Life Through Basketball is we want our military men and women who served and who are currently serving to choose life. We want them
Mm.
to choose life through basketball or life through sports. And that is important because if they're playing in our league, if they're playing basketball for us or they're at practices with their coaches, they're choosing life. And if
Mm.
they're a part of a team, they're a part of a family. And it's more reasonable for them and easier for them to communicate some of the challenges and impacts of their mental health fitness. They can talk to their coach. Their coach can find the resources through some of the things that we do to help get them some help. And if you're a veteran in crisis, some of our partnerships are able to help people. And to me, it's a life-saving mechanism. The Military Basketball
Mm.
Association is a tool and a link to saving life. And so
Mm.
if you're saving lives through basketball, what better mantra could we stand behind?
Yeah, absolutely. Now, are these teams made up of just active duty members, or are there veterans that are playing as well? And how does that work all together? Yeah.
Yeah, if you're an active duty service member or you're a veteran, you can play in the Military Basketball Association. You just have to have some type of affiliation with the Department of Defense
Yeah.
or the VA. You have to have served or been a veteran or been a DoD contractor or civilian. One of
Yeah.
those areas allows you to play in our league.
And so, I know when I've seen different bases or forts as the team. So you mentioned Fort Riley in Kansas. If I'm living there in the Kansas area, right, around Fort Riley, or
Absolutely.
is it? Yeah.
Yeah, you can try out. The coaches are there. We've got a couple of updates to your teams. We have 31 men's teams, and we have like 12 women's teams. So,
Okay.
and then Europe has close to 10 to 12 teams. So we're at about 50 teams,
Wow.
1,000 athletes, both men and women. And we've had 0 suicides since 2018.
Man, I that and I was going to ask about the impact because that is the ultimate metric. What are some of the other impacts that you're seeing outside of just that suicide rate?
Well, yeah, I mean, well, obviously impacts to your morale and your welfare and your well-being, your overall mental health.
Mm.
Um, we've seen that people like coming to the events. They love coming out and supporting their service or their
Yeah.
unit, their team. The military men and women get to travel to different cities because when we have our events, we have to plan for these things and we let the leadership in the cities know that, hey, there's going to be an economic impact. When you
Right.
put 250 to 300 military athletes in one city, like the way we did in Philadelphia, they're spending that money on that economy, and
Yeah.
there's been a tremendous impact in social media, where we had never reached over 7 figures as far as views and interest in social media and Instagram and Facebook across the country. I mean, you've got Ernie Johnson and Kenny Smith and Jay Wright and Clark Kellogg and Charles
Yeah.
Barkley talking about the Military Basketball Association and what we do
Yeah.
and why it's so important. So when you have these types of things that are happening, what you see here is it's no longer about Mike Meyers. It's not even about the MBA. It's about how we take care of our the people who serve us.
Mm.
And so the impact in sports is something that brings us all together. I mean, you look in the country now, you've got a divided country. You've
Mm.
got red and blue and all the other different colors that are making up our political atmosphere. But what's the one thing that brings everyone together? And that's
Yeah.
sports. Sports is something that people, you may not like, you may disagree on the teams that you root for, but you love the sport.
Yeah.
You may not like the, Baltimore Ravens, which is my team, or the Denver Broncos, which is where I live, but you love football.
Yeah.
And so that's the thing that everybody agrees on. And I think when we look at how we address the challenges that we face with mental health in the veteran community and the military community, you have to look at the commonalities that exist.
Yeah.
What are the things that we can agree on? We don't have to talk about policy. We don't have to talk about how we approach the policy or how we pay for things and all that. What we need to agree on is there's a problem. There's a
Yeah.
problem when 22 people a day are killing themselves or more, okay? And we're not really addressing and getting after, how we're saving lives. So instead of me sitting back and saying, oh, that's a problem, what I'm saying is here's one way that we can do something about the problem. It's you come to one of our events, someone's going to be there that can help you.
Yeah.
If you're an active duty player, you're playing actively in the MBA, well, you're already enhancing your resiliency already. And so that's pretty important for a whole lot of people.
You mentioned 22 suicides on average every day from veterans. Uh, is the Pentagon doing enough to work with veterans? Is Veterans Affairs? What is being done outside of the MBA to address these issues, and what more needs to be done?
That's a great question. What I would tell you is, and I'm not going to give you the media 101 question, but our answer. But I'll let the DoD and the Department of Defense, speak for themselves. I'm not going to say they don't care about veterans and they don't care about the active duty military. They have their own mechanisms and programs in place to where they're doing a great deal to try to help people. It's a holistic problem, just like the show's Holistic Productivity. I think, can you do more? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Are there organizations like myself that would love to partner with the Department of Defense? Absolutely. Both Secretary Collins and Secretary Hegseth at the Department of Defense and at the Department of Veterans Affairs, they're both have different approaches than the previous administration.
Right.
The bottom line is that I may not agree with the politics of either administration, but I have to understand that those are the leaders that are in charge right now. And so our job in the MBA is to work with anyone who wants to enhance the mental health fitness of veterans and active duty. So are they doing enough? I don't have any of the data that says that they're not. And I know when I was in, there were quite a few things that were in place that I could point to both on the active duty side and on the Veterans Affairs side that helped me. I'm a recently retired military person. I retired 3 years ago. Before I even got out, there were people calling me, checking on me, asking if I was okay.
Yeah.
One suicide is too many.
Yeah.
And so
Agreed.
on the active duty side, there are things that are in place to try to help people and look for signs of anybody that's in some type of crisis. So I feel for them because they have a very tough task with a wider population than just my 1,000 volunteer athletes.
Sure.
But if someone said, "Hey, are they doing the job? Are they doing enough?" I'm going to say there's no evidence out there that says that they're not.
Yeah. So let me flip that same question, maybe less controversial question. What, or is there anything that civilians like myself can do to combat this epidemic of mental health?
Yeah, I would say to educate yourselves on the things that are in place to help veterans. Understand what it means to employ a veteran or to employ someone or to relate to someone who's active duty. Our conflicts are, the major conflicts that I was a part of in 2006 to 2008. A lot there's a gap now. I'm not going to say we've been completely at peace, but we don't have, operational units going over and deploying like we did during that time frame. So what you're left with is trying to understand people who have been to war and have deployed. And so those people are now going into the civilian and corporate workforce. And so understanding what it means to have someone like that in your organization, not because they have post-traumatic stress, but what they bring to your organization, and how you hire them and how you relate to them, because their experience and their experience and backgrounds are different. That's one way I would say civilians could be involved, but also just to me, knowing the 988 number and knowing how to recognize someone who's in crisis, that's a veteran, you may not have the tools directly to help them,
Yeah.
but you need to be able to connect to the resources there.
988 is the National Suicide Hotline, correct?
That's the Veteran Crisis Hotline.
Oh, Veteran Crisis Hotline. Okay, perfect. We'll definitely put a link to the show in the show notes for that. And I think it's something that we all have to have some ownership in, right? I did not serve. I was not in the military, but the issue is, seems from my vantage point like it's a crisis. And, I want to know, what can I do from my place? And I think, again, understanding that veterans are not going to be coming at life from the same perspective that I do, because they have experienced different things and seen different things. And we need to be aware of that as they are in the workforce with us on the civilian side. So, yeah.
Well, I'll tell you, you definitely would have done a great job in the service, man. You've been great. You've been great.
I don't know about that, man. The crazy thing is, right, when I was a little kid, I think a lot of little kids, little boys, they think about going into the service, and I couldn't do push-ups. And I was afraid of how many push-ups I could do. And that for me, that kind of like wrote it off right there. I was like, I can't do push-ups. So I could never go in the Army. That was like the one thing that kept me from it.
Chris, the first day I did push-ups, the first test I had doing push-ups, I could only do 25. And I was a very, athletic person.
Yeah.
Southwestern. I loved playing basketball. I was in there all the time playing in the gym. But when I left to go to basic training, my first physical fitness test, I could only do 25 push-ups, and I could only do like maybe 65 sit-ups. And so
I don't think I would have gotten 25, man. You were a lot more buff than me. Still are, by the way.
I don't know about that. I try to stay in shape. I try to stay in shape, but it's been pretty cool.
Yeah. Talk to me about some of your partners with the MBA, because I think this is the thing to me. I'm in fundraising. I understand the relationship, the sponsorship side of it for in the nonprofit world, what the equivalent would be. But you've got partners, Paramount, obviously CBS, you talked about that, the sports network, Amazon, DirecTV, Wounded Warriors, Body Armor Beverages, Oklahoma City Thunder, the NBA team, the NBA team, sorry. Talk about that process. How did it come about that you have all these big names working with you and supporting the NBA?
Oh, God's will, man. I to be honest with you, and literally, just him blessing us blessing me and my team with the uncanny ability to just connect with people with our message. And so CBS came about by LinkedIn. I messaged Betty Diaz from she used to work at Paramount Veterans Network, and she put us in touch with people at CBS Sports Network. We had a call, and they had the availability in 2023 to put us on national television. And then we had a great viewership, or enough to where they gave us a 3-year deal. And then, DirecTV was great. They believed in what we were doing. We had Body Armor was okay. It's a great partnership for the year that we had them, and they were able to deliver hydration to our military athletes. But a couple of big ones that come to mind are like Wounded Warrior Project, which aligns exactly with what we're trying to do, and that's impact people that are in transition. Amazon Prime came on a little bit later, but they employ so many people. So when you start looking at what does Amazon do and what does Wounded Warrior Project do, Wounded Warrior Project helps people with their claims and their benefits and helps them transition from active duty out into the veteran and civilian workforce. And then Amazon is an employer. I mean, they have got, millions of people that work for them. And they're just phenomenal in what they do for veterans. And then the last two that were huge the last 2 years, and the reason why we've been able to be as successful as we are, the Department of Veterans Affairs came on board last year just incredible. I mean, we were able to build up enrollments for folks with veterans that had that needed benefits and enroll for their benefits. And we were able to educate the public on what the Department of Veterans Affairs is able to do for veterans. That is their job. That's their cabinet position. That's what that position's for. That department is for that, established by Abraham Lincoln. So when you look at that, the Department of Veterans Affairs, that's really kind of how we were able to go. And then finally, last one was Genentech, a pharmaceutical company that is doing so much in the realm of innovation and science and technology and biotechnology to try and help people and help veterans across the country with things that impact their health. They have just been believers. There's a lot of veterans within Genentech that have just been phenomenal in sending out the message to what we do, but then also talking and using our platform as a platform to educate the public on some of the advances that they've made in medicine. So those types of partners and our ability to kind of share our story and share our platform are what make the MBA successful and make it, profitable for organizations to partner with us, because we are looking to over deliver any chance we get.
Yeah. No, I've definitely been impressed with what I've seen from my vantage point. So what is next for the Military Basketball Association? I mean, what's on the radar? What's the ultimate goal? Is it more teams? Is it more awareness, obviously, that you guys exist? What is it that Mike would like to see?
So what's next year? The World Championships will be in Colorado Springs at the Air Force Academy. And the other things, in 3 to 5 years, where do I see the NBA? The marketability of the military athlete. We talk about LeBron James, we talk about Steph Curry, Michael Jordan. These are great, icons and legends. But there's some people that play in my organization that serve their country. They're phenomenal basketball players, and they have a story to tell too. And so we want to tell that story. There's some amazing men and women with just exceptional skill that we want to tell that story about how they came to where they are and why it was so important for them to step forward and raise their hand to serve their country. And then while they're serving their country from, Monday to Thursday or Monday to Friday, on the weekends, they play this game called basketball to make sure that they stay resilient and they enhance their mental health. That is a story that needs to be told. We want to tell it in so many different areas. We want to tell it through apparel. We want to tell it through hydration. We want to tell it through science and technology. And we want to tell it through tech. Those are and social media. Those are the things that I think in 3 to 5 years make the NBA sustainable as an organization, but also as a value tool in our society.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I love seeing the progress and the everything that's happening. I mean, look, I'm following along on social media. I'm watching it. I love it, and it strikes me that this was not a small goal to bring this together. Do you see yourself as this goal-oriented guy? Was there any kind of method to your madness or specific system that you used when you were starting out? Or did you just pull it all together as it came through? I mean, what was it how did that work?
So Angel Acevedo and I had a late night conversation about how we wanted and what we thought military basketball should look like. It took about 2 hours. He invited me up to Colorado Springs, and the rest literally is history. I told him I wanted to name it the NBA, and he said, "I think that's cheesy." And so I was going through trying to make a logo for what we do during a lunchtime period. I called him back and I said, "You know what, Ace, I like NBA, and I'm going to do what I do, and I'm going to set it up, and I'd like you to be a part of this." So it just started out as a tournament. The method to our madness now is, what are we giving these athletes that nobody else can give them? Nobody in the history of the military as far as volunteer sports, as far as intramural sports or any type of volunteer platform, has put military athletes on CBS Sports Network, or with our documentary on Amazon Prime, or with our championship games that reside on Pluto Television's network. That type of exposure is what no one else has been able to do. People talk about it, but we've been about it for the last 8 years. So the method is, what are we bringing new the next year? And over the summer, I'm always thinking of something different. I'm always thinking of something new, something innovative. And it's just another thing. We just try to stay ahead of whatever competition might be out there. But we understand that we have a responsibility to provide the highest and best platform for our athletes that we can.
That's awesome. Look, man, if there's ever a tournament that you have in DC, Northern Virginia, Maryland, let me know. I know you're up here often.
We're planning, we're working on
Yeah.
it. And, as of today, it might actually end up taking place. We were thinking about, I visited Johns Hopkins. I put that out there on social media a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
They have an outstanding facility, and we would love to do something up there in February at Johns Hopkins University. It's great there. My cousin Tia is working in that area. So there's a lot of things that can happen in the DC, DMV area. Fort Lee, Virginia, we do have a tournament in Petersburg, in Fort Lee, Virginia, Veterans Day weekend. So in November. So yeah, man, I'll let you know anything. I'll do anything for you, Chris.
Yeah. No, look, I'm coming. I'm buying a ticket, man. It's awesome. I would love to be at one of those events. Bring my kids. My youngest son is like basketball obsessed, so he would love it. And
awesome.
yeah, no, man, Mike, I love hearing about this. Thank you for sharing and for doing this. And first and foremost, I mean, because I think there is such a need to reach our military, active duty, our veterans. And thank you for stepping up and taking a role in doing that and doing what you can in that. And I love that it's working out. I love watching it blow up and have such success. And thank you. Kudos to you and the rest of your team. But thank you for doing that and for being here tonight.
And hey, Chris, thank you so much for allowing me to take part in this, holistic productivity. I love the concept and the idea behind it. And I do want to say thanks to my team. I have an amazing team: Angel Acevedo, Albert Mayon, who's our president of basketball operations, and Tara Ethington, who's our marketing VP. These are people that have been volunteering with me for over 7 years. And then the two gentlemen that I know, I've known them for over 10 years. And Ace, I've known for almost 15 years, for 15 years exactly. So it's just, I would not be who I am without my team, our volunteer coaches, our volunteer athletes that participate and make this league great every day.
It definitely takes all of us coming together. So that's awesome. Hey, I end every show with what I call the questions. And this is inspired by James Lipton, host of Inside the Actors Studio. And it's based on the Proust questionnaire. So we're just going to take these questions. There's 10 of them. We're just going to go rapid fire. Say as much or as little as you want. Question number 1, what motivates you?
What motivates me? What motivates me is helping people. Helping them every day. I wake up every day trying to figure out how I can make an impact on society and how I can help people through the platform that God's given.
What discourages you?
Doubt. People that second guess, a particular course of action, or when someone says, just doubt. People that are small-minded or perceived challenges that folks will think are too hard. That's a little discouraging.
Yeah. One word that describes you at your best.
Competitive.
One word that describes you at your worst.
Competitive.
I
don't know.
Twist.
No, I think, let's see, at my worst, Um, at my worst, I've had some low points in my life, so
Hmm.
I'd say depressed. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah. Other than family or work, what gives you purpose?
God.
Hmm.
God gives me purpose. My faith.
Yeah. What guilty pleasure brings you joy?
Guilty pleasure brings me joy. I don't coach anymore. I loved coaching basketball.
Hmm.
And yeah, what guilty working out. Working
Okay.
out. Yep,
Yeah.
working out.
How do you celebrate a win?
With my girlfriend.
How do you bounce back after a loss?
Oh, I work hard.
Hmm.
I mean, I'll give you a real quick short story, but I lost the gold medal to the Navy in 2017. And I told our service rep, I said, I'll recruit better. And in 2019, we won a gold medal. Yeah,
That's awesome.
I work harder.
Who was the last person that you expressed gratitude towards?
My girlfriend.
Smart man. And if you could go back in time, what would you tell your 25-year-old self?
Oh, man. Oh, my God. At 25, I was a cadet. My 25-year-old self, I would tell my 25-year-old self, the moment that things get tough, dig deeper, grind harder because you're almost there.
Hmm.
And I think had I done that throughout my military career, I would have gotten a lot further. But not to get discouraged. Not to
Hmm.
get discouraged.
Yeah, man. Well, Mike, thank you again. Love what you're doing. We're going to put in the show notes links, how you can connect with Mike, with the MBA, how you can watch the documentary. It's a
Yes.
great documentary. I enjoyed watching that. Again, that is on Amazon Prime. So we'll put all of that links in the show notes. But thank you so much for being here, Mike, and all of you. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Check out the show notes at holisticproductivity.com. And make sure that you're subscribed on your favorite podcast platform. We're on all of the major ones. On YouTube, if you want to watch the show. And again, just subscribe, like, follow, whatever that looks like on your platform so that you can see the next episode when it drops. Make sure you're following on social media as well. Instagram, Facebook, Threads, LinkedIn, Substack, YouTube, all of them. Got lots of great productivity tips and motivation for you on your goal journey there as well. But again, thank you for being here and for listening in. As always, my goal is to help you dream big, plan smart, and live fully. And that's what we're hoping that you're going to do right now. Thank you so much again. Take care. We'll see you next time.